may even get tired of winning, and you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the Astrolabe. It is Friday. What a Friday it is. It is hot as hell outside here in the belly of Texas. And I have been riding high ever since I went and saw Young Washington with Amy. We got to go on a date together for the first time in who knows how long. It's been forever. Finally got to go on a date. Shout out to Gaga and hanging out with Eastwood, entertaining Eastwood. And we got to go see it, and I was chimping the whole time. I was just, oh man, go see it. You have to go see it. In terms of like cinema quality, like all of that, like the caliber of a movie, like from a really autistically broken down technical sense, it's a good solid like 7.5 out of 10, something like that. It's definitely entertaining, and you could like have some critiques here and there about the way this thing is set up, or whatever. But just the vibes of it, the aesthetics of it, I was just in a perpetual state of chimp from just about the moment that it took off. And it's shamed me that there was cultural references or historical references in there that I was trying to remember. I'm like, I know that name. What do I know that from? And I'm shamed, because when I was a kid, I was obsessed with Revolutionary War history and Civil War history and studying all the battles and the different generals and the key dates and everything. And then it's just kind of drifted away. I haven't made that my particular focus. So there's names and references in there that I'm like, I'm trying to remember the significance of that. But I couldn't bring myself to like pull my phone out and try to like sneakily try to look things up or whatever. I just sat there and just took it in. And yeah, I mean, there's some stuff in it that's a little cheesy. But if you think that it's like boomer slop, it is not at all. It's not The Patriot, but it is not boomer slop whatsoever. It was actually. It was very good. It was a very, there were some choices that were made in the way that they cast certain characters and little snippets of dialogue and stuff that were very interesting. I don't want to give anything away because I know that there's still people who haven't seen it, and I hate getting stuff spoiled, and I wouldn't want to make you have to be like, oh, I have to turn this off. I can't hear it. I don't want a spoiler. So I'm not going to spoil like particular things. It kicked off a bunch of thoughts for me about George Washington, the man, and the various different political realities of the time, and what it was like for Americans to be from this wild place that was so completely undefined. There was we're talking about going out into the Ohio Valley, which is like in southern and well, it's basically all of Pennsylvania, but especially like southeastern Pennsylvania. And this was the great beyond that nobody knows about. There's like little trails carved here and there, and it's this just rugged wilderness, which is difficult to fathom today. I went and I sat on Google Maps for a while, and I was doing like Street View, just going around the area of Pittsburgh, the Three Rivers area, the different places where the battles were fought and everything, and kind of picturing it. And it's fascinating that the movie doesn't like, obviously it's a movie, it's a portrayal, it's not an actual capturing of what happened exactly. But I think it's a good reminder that this is what all stories are. There isn't an objective official scientific history. It's different retellings based on the details that have come through and trying to create a narrative out of the available details. And then you take some liberties and stuff to fill in gaps, and some nuances get lost. Some of them can be retained. And so it's like a really well told within the constraints of what a movie can be. I think it's a very good telling of the capturing the spirit of the time, the different dynamics, the character, the person of George Washington and the particular state that he was born into, and his own personal aspirations and ambitions, and the emerging realities of dealing with you have the natives, you have the colonials who are looked upon, they're like second class citizens sort of, and then you have the British, and then you have the French, and then like the legal state of these different claims to the territory is so fascinating to look back on. Because these are like the crown grants a charter to a private company that's a bunch of rich guys who just get together and like pool whatever social class and resources they have and say, hey, we're going to go do this explore this area way out there. Nobody really knows what's out there, but like the very first thing we're going to do is go like kind of start exploring and start surveying it and mapping it out. And so these guys just get together and pool their resources and then secure financing from someone if they need it, and the crown grants them a charter, and they go out and they lay claim to that area. But once they've gone out and they've laid claim to it, this is property of the crown. And so then other interests coming and imposing on that creates political ramifications elsewhere. And even growing up, when I like read this stuff voraciously, I was reading and studying it from this perspective of the United States being just kind of this like in a vacuum, and not really considering the other different political goings on in Europe. So like we call it the French and Indian War here in the United States, and I guess maybe that's a little bit of a spoiler. Is it's basically covering the lead up to the French and Indian War, like George as a child up to the lead up of the French and Indian War. I think that's probably vague enough that you'll get that just in a basic description of the movie. And we call it the French and Indian War. It was actually the 7 Years' War that had implications in India and the Philippines, and territories being exchanged through all these different empires, having little skirmishes here and there. But like in the U.S., you don't really get that perspective. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, you had the French and Indian Wars, and there was like skirmishes here, and this is where George Washington made his name, and then eventually you had the Revolutionary War. And then it was just like all the Americans against all the British, and oh yeah, there was like French and maybe like Germans or something that kind of were involved, but yeah, it's a very stripped down, kind of shallow retelling of the history. And now I've had rekindled in my heart a desire to study these places and to take Eastwood to see them. Go see them in person. We need to make some money. I need to do some streams so I can make some money so that we can take Eastwood to go see all the places that the Redcoats got BTFO'd. Speaking of Eastwood, he when we watched it, we were watching it with an eye for like, is this something that it would be appropriate for him? Is it something he would get, something he would follow? So for those of you who have kids, I'll say for us, he's 5.5. And in terms of the content of the movie, it's I think he would probably be fine with it. There are our biggest concern would be that he would like enjoy the violence too much. But there will be parts of the dialogue maybe that they won't really follow. But what we're planning on is once it's available to stream at home, we're going to sit down and watch it with him, and we can pause it and like explain stuff as we're going through. So there's very little gore per se, but the violence is pretty intense. Like you really get the sense of the desperation or the environmental effects and everything. Like when cannons are being rolled out, you're like, oh fuck, cannons! Introducing cannons into this shit show. But it's not really gory. There's just like when tomahawks are being used, it's very clear what tomahawks are being used for. So for those who have kids, you're wondering if it would be appropriate for them. Oh yeah. Also, there's some of the dialogue is subtitled, so they would have to be able to read it. So we're not going to take him to see it in the theaters because we'd have to. It would go too fast for him. He probably wouldn't totally process everything. But we'll show it to him in at home. When I was his age, my parents wouldn't have let me watch something like that. But I think he'll be fine. So then it sparked some thoughts for me about George Washington. Of course, since I posted about it, then my timeline, the great thing about the algorithm is when you want to know about something, just post about it and it'll tell you about that thing. You don't even have to go searching for it. Just post something about young Washington and come back in half an hour and scroll a little bit more, and you'll see all the things you want to see. One of the things that we had to cover with him, we had to prepare him for, is that early on, George Washington was committed to the crown. George Washington wanted to be a redcoat. That was his all-encompassing focus. He wanted to be a redcoat. And that was very difficult for we told him. And he just went like this. No, just thumbs down. That's not allowed. It was not allowed. So, my wife's saying check Venmo. Let me check that real quick. We got a couple donations here. And we got a 1488 from Wit. He said, George Washington is the most impactful man of the last 300 years, and I'm tired of pretending he wasn't. Move over, Uncle Hortler. Sir, you're exactly correct. We don't need Hitler. Hitler's fine. Hitler has his features. He has his bugs. He was, I think he was by definition a great man of history. He was a great man of history for another people. We have a greater man. We have a man who founded and established a nation, who developed, who formed it from clay and stamped it with his own personality, temperament, values. We have our great man to look back to. There was a discussion going on in the King Pill Discord about how without George Washington, you never get Napoleon. So if you want those kinds of conversations, kingpill.com. We will be having a voice chat tonight. I'll basically be labeling up until time for the voice chat, which is in about an hour and 45 minutes. We'll go for 2 hours or so, and then I'll be hopping over there. We'll have our weekly voice chat together. So again, if you would like to join us for that, go to kingpill.com. Thank you, Wit, for the 1488. Let me, I gotta input some things here manually. Also, we got $100 the other day from Howie. Big thanks to Howie Snowden. He sent $100 and it came through Streamlabs, so I didn't notice it until a couple days later. But $100 from him, I added that to the total already. He said we gave them a week off because we're nice. I think that was referencing when we were talking about the memorandum of understanding with Iran, and that we needed to put a pause in the proceedings briefly to bring the big aircraft home, and gave them a little breather for a little bit. So thank you, Howie, for the $100. And then also during the pre-show, we got, hold on, I got to share the screen so that the audio works. We got this.
Next PNW meetup when?
$20 from Nuclear Fatwa. Thank you, friend. Next PNW meetup. That's a good question. There's the possibility this fall, because we, as our typical thing is going up there, for Eastwood's birthday. I don't know for sure if we're actually gonna make that happen this year or not, but that would be the nearest point. We also, we have some other traveling we need to do, some other people we need to see, some other, potential events. Miles Standish says after the fucking Phoenix one. Well, odds are pretty good that you're going to get a lot of Phoenix ones in your future. But that is another place. We do need to get over to Southern California and see the rest of Amy's family here soon. Todd Man says, don't meet in Seattle, come to the South Sound. That's what we did last time. We met at a brewery in Tacoma. So we'll probably do something similar to that. So if you are in the greater Pacific Northwest area, just, I guess you could hit me up now and let me know you would be down for it. The nearest we would be able to do it would probably be October. And I can't even completely guarantee that. So, Amy says, I don't think we're going for his birthday. I want to go for Christmas. Okay, that may be another possibility. We may wind up going up there for Christmas, and so then it would be that time, which means the weather is an absolute and total crapshoot. Could be sunny, could be rainy, could be 18 inches of snow. No idea. That'll make it fun. Okay, let me get through a couple of these previews here from the Agitprop Master. He sent us 2 for this week. And another note, the Pseudowave this week is going to be on Sunday again, because it's going to be a long one. I unless he's doing something. I know what movie he's doing. I don't know if he hints at it in here, but I know what movie he's doing. It's going to be a long one, and I wouldn't be able to start until after the Norway-England game because my wife will do ghastly things to me if I do something in the middle of that. So we're going to watch the Norway-England game, and it's going to be over, I think, probably by like 6 p.m. or so. So we're not going to do it Saturday night. We will do it on Sunday afternoon, evening. So make sure you show up for that. It'll only be on Kick. The Pseudowaves are not appropriate for YouTube. I would not have a YouTube channel any longer. We've gotten the stream's gotten taken down once on Kick, but I think I know the reason for that. So anyways, come over to Kick. You can come over to Kick right now if you'd like a better chat interface. Who knows how good the stream will be, the stability of the stream, and it will burn up your battery. But the chat interface is so much more enjoyable. We also love our YouTube Patriots. All right, so Week 77 preview. Your ancestors and your descendants are you. I have a feeling I'm going to chimp. Chimp mode engaging. Pixelization! Oh, baby!
It don't take a lot to move it. It's gonna take a lot to make me stop. I'm racing to a fire alarm. Should slow down, but I just can't stop. I've got the fighter's touch. I feel the Don't take a lot to keep me moving. It's gonna take a lot to make me stop. I feel the heat inside me. Should slow down, but I just can't stop. There's something there, I can hear it calling. I wanna hold it, but I'm moving too fast.
Oh, I'm powering up!
Where's the fire? Everybody's always asking me, where is it, baby? Doesn't anybody know?
Oh, look at my African American uncle. Look at him.
It's burning up inside of me. Where is it, baby? Doesn't anybody know? Where's the fire?
Maggie Cox in the chat!
Everybody's always asking me, where is it, baby? Doesn't anybody know? Where's the fire? It's burning up inside of me. Where is it, baby? Open up the door and let me go.
Imagine a feature-length Sudawave edit like that. Just that. Like an entire album. Oh. That was like that was like the Sudawave best hits. There was a bunch of movies that he has done. There was some that he hasn't, and one of them was there was a little hint. There was a little clue there. You guys can guess which one it was, unless he reveals it before then. So that was number one. This is Sudawave preview for week 77. This is preview number 1. Now, preview number 2, and as is our custom, I haven't watched either of these. But the second one here, I think is tonally very different. We'll see. He said that he expects this to make me cry. So be prepared. Wow. You get all sorts here when you show up to the Astrolabe. When you get Paul Suda content thrown at you, you get all sorts of speeds. Oh, that was great. That was so good. And we have a poem. There, far friends, ours, dear dominion. Whole health resides with peace, gladness, and never harm. There not time turning, nor fear of flower of snow. Where marbling water slides, no charm may halt of chill. Acre isling the open acres and all the gracious trees. Sprout up their standing foundations, or sprout up their standing fountains of wind beloved green, and the blue conclaved mountains are grave guards. Stone and springing field, wide one tenderness. The unalterable hour smiles deathlessness. No thing is there thinks, mind the witherer, withers on the outward air, we cannot come there. Sure on this shining night of star-made shadows round, kindness must watch for me, this side the ground. The late year lies down the north, all is healed, all is health. High summer holds the earth, hearts all whole. Sure on this shining night I weep for wonder wandering far alone, of shadows on the stars. Now thorn bone bare, silenced by iron the branch's gullet, rattling merely on the air of horn-leaved holly. The stony mark where sand was by, the water of a nailed foot. The berry harder than the beak, the hole beneath the dead oak root. All now brought quiet through the latest throw, quieted and ready and quiet, still not snow. Still thorn bone hair, iron in the silenced gully, rattling only of the air through horn-leaved holly. The Description of Elysium, James Agee, 1934. Once again, Sunday afternoon, probably about 5 p.m., we will be doing this week's edition of the Sudawave. So, please do tip your streamer, folks. Tips.kingpill.com. So in watching the movie Young Washington, there was something that stuck out to me, and this is where I've been lacking in my patriot duty in not more closely studying the life of the founder of the nation, the father of the nation. There's something about a guy who fathers a nation that is, by definition, is a great man. It's like if you're the man who is chosen, who is bestowed with this responsibility to be the father of the nation, then there is a measure of destiny in that. And Imperium Press has a Washington biography. Thank you for that. I was going to ask if anybody had a good one to, whether it's like a historical podcast or a book or something like that. I need to better understand that time, because I think that the better that I understand that time, as I look back on it now, before when I studied it and kind of memorized all of these times and events and everything, and like I've said before, you growing up on the West Coast, you're almost kind of like the West Coast has been the frontier sort of, and it's only been, it's not like it was completely remote and detached, but it's its own world kind of, and this things that happen on the East Coast were something that happened in another place. So there's not like a real like personal attachment to it necessarily. You're just kind of like studying this history of something that happened in this other part of the land that I call my home. But now going back and looking at it again through new eyes, I see how many patterns are the same, and how many of these conflicts that we're having are the same conflict. They're different expressions of the same conflict we've been having for the duration of the existence of the United States. And in many ways, we've inherited conflicts from the old world, but then we've had our own unique expression of them. And I think people still really struggle to appreciate how young the United States is as a political entity. And yet, it's very young as an entity, and yet it also has had this staying power with this particular form of government, though it's changed and different parts have been emphasized and it's expanded and it's taken on other components. It's maintained some of these core principles that have defined it. We literally have the same governing document that we've always had. It's I think we were talking about this in the King Pill Discord the other night, that I think the only other nation that could sort of hold claim to it would be kind of like Japan. But even then, they still have the emperor. The emperor has become extremely ceremonial, or entirely ceremonial. And really, there aren't the only other, quote unquote, sovereign entities that can lay claim to like, how long has it been since your last revolution? That's a pretty good standard. How far back was your last revolution? If you've had a revolution, by definition, it's not the same regime, the same entity any longer. So the United States has existed relative to all others for a long time. And yet at the same time, what the United States is still very much being discovered, being born out and developed. And I was struck by the parallels in many ways between then and today. And I'll try to avoid going too spoilery, but and then the similarities between Trump and Washington, which seems a little trite, I know. And yet, holy cow, it's crazy. It's crazy how similar they are, and the role that they played. And the role that Trump is playing today is very much akin to the role that Washington was playing then, across so many different domains. In so many ways, they were such similar characters. Let's see, where do I want to go with this? So I have a couple of things that I want to read to kind of illustrate this. And you could probably expect that I'll be exploring this more, this subject more in the future, because I'm ready to start doing some deep dives into some stuff. But first of all, here's this account that I just came across that, like I said, I already followed him. Why does it say I need to follow him? Thank you, Pale Morning Dude, for the kicks. I told you that when I started talking about the oh, that's not working now, of course. When I started talking about young Washington on the timeline, then my timeline blessed me with a bunch of young Washington adjacent content. And this guy's capitalizing on it well. So he says, 4 musket balls tore through George Washington's coat at the Battle of Monongahela. 2 horses were shot dead beneath him. He rode back and forth across the worst of the fighting, rallying broken men. And when the smoke cleared, he did not have a single scratch on him. An Indian chief later said he ordered his men to fire at Washington again and again, then stopped, certain the Great Spirit was shielding him. It's like Teflon George, just firing at him. Like he's going where no man could have fathomed it going. He just keeps going and just keeps going and just keeps going, and nothing touches him. And some people, they see that and they're just like, all right, there's something going on here. I don't understand it, but clearly the hand of God is on this man. Like when the witches couldn't hex the dawn. Right. And there's one thing I think that the movie illustrates well is that you do these mythic tales of great heroes, and there's the tendency to it's like you either have to whitewash their foibles, or you have to kind of caricature them, like use the foibles as the direct plot device. In this case, it used some of his foibles as a sort of plot device, but it didn't caricature them. It did it honestly. That he was a man of great ambition. He talks about it. It's a thing well known about him. He was this man of great ambition who was born in a lower state and wanted to ascend beyond his natural station. So he had this ambitious nature to him, this sort of idealism or a striving for what's beyond, what's outside, what's beyond the current bounds of acceptability. Which is fascinating then that he had this desire to rise above, and yet he was also so loyal to the crown. He had such deep respect for the institutions associated with the crown and the British aristocracy, and he wanted the royal commission. He wanted to be brought into the British system. He was like, I was born here, but this is British land, and I'm a child of Britain and a child of America. I want Britain and America to be together. And yet, one thing led to another, and he becomes the definition of the resistance against Britain. Another really interesting, it's a little strained, but there's an interesting parallel there with Trump. Where he was like the belle of the ball of the old world. He was the insider who everyone knew, everyone was aware of. He was like iconic representation of America, and like friends with the Clintons, and just loves his country and is proud of it. And he's like, hey, this is the established way of doing things. So let's just do things the way that let's just change things according to the way is the established manner of things. And then he just gets hit in the face enough times that eventually he's like, all right, you know what? Fuck all of you. If I need to be the one who leads, who mounts this resistance and this fight for independence, then so be it. I will. Witt says during the French Indian War, there were legends in the tribes that he was blessed. He should have died so many times. Right. It's like, I see all these little fascinating parallels. He came up within, with a deep respect and appreciation for the established way of doing things. And then this other thing too is that he was not a great military tactician or strategist. He wasn't the greatest military mind, but what he could do is he could manage men extraordinarily well. He was a great keeper of morale and was a master of coordinating various different interests and uniting them together and negotiating between them, striking great grand deals, you might say. And he never blackpilled. Superior B, you're beating me to the punch here. Never blackpilled. Really, his military career, by and large, was amounted to him keeping losses from becoming bigger losses. And playing the extend to pretend game, essentially. Dragging it out, using attrition in his favor because he saw the bigger game. He just intuitively understood and was well studied and understood the bigger game at play and recognized that he needed to maintain unity and just drag it out until he was the only one left standing. And so then there's a similar sense here in that what was Trump defined as in the business world? Everyone's like, oh, look how many times he's filed for bankruptcy. He was defined in many cases by his business failures, but because he persisted through each of these business failures and pragmatically used what was in front of him, he scaled that system to its top. So there's almost a, like, he went up against all of these other great strategists and tacticians, but wound up beating all of them. So then how valuable is it to be a great strategist and tactician? Obviously, there isn't a real dichotomy there, but it's just kind of an interesting food for thought. George was 23 years old. He wrote to his brother a few days later, almost puzzled by it. and said he had been protected beyond all human expectation by the miraculous care of Providence. He recognizes immediately that this is Providence. Just in the same way, when Trump is winged by a bullet, he says, it was the hand of God that protected me. And here's the part people forget. That was not the one time, that was the pattern. At Princeton, he rode his horse to within 30 yards of the British line and told his men to hold as the muskets opened up. An officer who was there covered his eyes because he was sure he was about to watch the general die. When he looked again, Washington was still sitting tall in the saddle, waving his hat, completely unharmed. For 8 years of war, he stood where the fighting was heaviest and the bullets simply refused to find him. His enemies started to talk about it. His own soldiers started to believe it. He was not being reckless. He just never seemed to believe it was his time. This is Donald Trump today. He stands out in the open and says, bring it. And they bring it. And he's still standing. And the more that he does it, the more people are like, oh, okay, I guess we can go this way. This is the thread that runs through nearly every great man in history. They lived like the date had already been written, and no enemy on earth could move it up by a single hour. Caesar stood on the bank of the Rubicon, looked at everything he was about to risk, and said, the die is already cast. Then he walked into it. Cromwell rode into battle after battle, convinced the outcome had been settled long before either army woke up that morning. And he fought like a man who had nothing left to fear because the ending was not his to decide. Andrew Jackson stood on the Capitol steps while a man walked up and pulled a pistol on him at point-blank range. It misfired. The man drew a second pistol. That one misfired too. The odds of both failing were so small that people argued about it for years. Jackson just raised his cane and went after the man himself. Stonewall Jackson would ride calmly through a storm of gunfire while everyone around him flinched. And when someone finally asked how he stayed so steady, he said it plainly. My religious belief teaches me to feel as safe in battle as in bed. God has already fixed the time of my death, so I do not trouble myself about it. I am always ready no matter when it comes. That was the whole secret. Not that they loved danger, not that they did not feel fear. They simply believed their steps were already numbered by a hand higher than any king, and a man who truly believes that walks through fire like it's a hallway. You cannot kill a man before his work is done. And when you line their lives up side by side, the escapes, the misfires, the bullets that pass through the coat but never the man, it gets it gets very hard to call all of it luck. The thought that kept going through my mind while I was sitting there watching the movie was, I have never been prouder to be an American. Never. It was the most patriotic that I've felt in like just about ever. There was multiple times in the movie where I was genuinely getting choked up at something that I was like, there's like this objective part of my brain or something that's like, that's not that. Like why is that affecting you that way? And it just did. Some of it was just the landscape. Just looking at it and being like, that's my country. Thinking about the men who went out and conquered it and settled it and raised up this land in it. And seeing it portrayed in just its like wild, virginal state gave me just a whole new appreciation for the greatness of those men. Like having no clue what they were ever going to accomplish. It's difficult, I think, for us to imagine what it's like to be living on the fringe of this great continent with no idea what lies out there, even what out there is. We've all lived in a time where like the entire world is completely mapped and you can you can use Google Maps to go look at literally any square inch on Earth. Who knows whether it's real or not, but at least you have a compelling picture of it. So it gives you a conception of this world that's out there, and it's like there isn't that frontier anymore where there's this opportunity to go out and conquer this thing that's immediately visible, like that land over there. I've often, I would have loved to have been a surveyor. That would have been, but no, honestly, the surveying itself I wouldn't have enjoyed, but being with the surveyors is what I would have enjoyed. Being like the person who's out there documenting everything that's happening, and then telling the story of it and sending messages back home. And it's the presence of that frontier looming there always, teasing you and luring you, is it creates a person. Whether you live constantly in the shadow of it and like fearful of it and don't go out there, that's where the wild things are. Or if you have the spirit of the frontiersmen who were like, this is our opportunity. This is, what else are we going to do? I've got this big proving ground to go out and prove myself in. And if I can overcome that, if I can overcome whatever lies ahead of me and then come back home again, I'll be rewarded with riches and acclaim. Or maybe sometimes you won't be. Maybe you'll go through all of that and you'll come back and the people will be like, yeah, who cares? So what? And you know what you went through. They can't even begin to fathom the sacrifices that you're making. And you've got to go out and do it again. And you don't have a choice, because what else are you going to do? Just like lay down in the mud and die? In so many ways, young men of today are too blessed by the luxuries and the ease that is at their disposal, the life of ease that they can live, and just sort of anesthetize that desire to go out and conquer. Like it would be better to take young men and just send them out into the wilderness with a couple of tools and a tent or something and force them to find their way home. Force them to make something out of themselves out there. That would be better than giving them substances and luxuries and social stability, like all these sorts of things. Those are toxic to a man. Men are supposed to create social safety nets, not benefit from them. Men are the social safety nets. And if you want to eradicate that spirit in men, particularly in American men, you take the frontier away from them. You tell them that it doesn't exist. You tell them that it's, it's not fair that there's a frontier there. There's something like what Donald Trump is doing, whether he's aware of it or not, is reigniting this spirit. And we can, with our great propagandists, we can throw lighter fluid on this flame. Reminding Americans what they are, what their legacy is, what their inheritance is, how much they have to live up to. There's this one particular anecdote that I remember hearing about this when I think I read about it in a book somewhere when I was like 11 or 12. And it's funny going back and looking at it now. I think this was actually one of the first times that I started developing a bad taste in my mouth for Alexander Hamilton, which is it's a whole other story. Fortunately, I've been cured of that. And so it's very interesting to go back and look at this story in hindsight. And this famous address that George Washington gave, I want to read it again because it is so crazy. It's blows my mind how applicable it is to today. So the Newburgh Conspiracy. I'll just read from the Wikipedia here for a little bit of background for those who don't know about it. It was a failed apparent threat by leaders of the Continental Army in March of 1783. At the end of the American Revolutionary War, the Army's commander, George Washington, successfully calmed the soldiers and helped secure back pay. The conspiracy may have been instigated by members in the Congress of the Confederation, which circulated an anonymous letter in the Army camp at Newburgh, New York on March 10, 1783. Soldiers were unhappy that they'd not been paid for some time and that pensions had been promised remained unfunded. The letter suggested that they should take unspecified action against Congress to resolve the issue. The letter was said to have been written by Major John Armstrong, aide to General Horatio Gates, although the authorship and underlying ideas are subject to historical debate. Washington stopped any serious talk of rebellion when he made an emotional address to his officers asking them to support the supremacy of Congress. Not long afterward, Congress approved a compromise agreement that it had previously rejected. It funded some of the pay arrears and granted soldiers 5 years of full pay instead of a lifetime pension of half pay. The motivations of numerous actions in these events are debated. Most historians say that the plot was led by civilians. Their goal was forcing Congress to make good on its longstanding promises to the soldiers. Some historians allege that serious consideration was given within the Army of some sort of coup d'etat, while others dispute the notion. The exact motivations of congressmen involved in communications with Army officers implicated in the events are similarly debated. So, this is after Yorktown, and the war had basically died down. They're having peace talks, and it was the Morris brothers and Alexander Hamilton and James Madison who were kind of behind this. Congress had in 1780 promised Continental officers a lifetime pension of half their pay when they were discharged. Financier Robert Morris had in early 1782 stopped Army pay as a cost-saving measure, arguing that when the war finally ended, the arrears would be made up. So the war was basically over, but the peace talks were dragging on and on and on. Doesn't this sound familiar? The actual there's still like skirmishes here and there, but there had been a great military turning point, and now things are just kind of dragging on, and the guys who've been involved and been personally sacrificing and fighting in this are now like, when are we going to benefit economically from this? Where's what we're owed? So then, throughout 1782, these issues were a regular topic of debate in Congress and in the Army camp at Newburgh, and numerous memos and petitions by individual soldiers had failed to significantly affect congressional debate on the subject. So then down here, Congress was bitterly divided on the subject of finance, with Rhode Island preventing action. The Treasury was empty, and Congress lacked the power to compel the states to provide the necessary funds for meeting its obligations. An attempt to amend the Articles of Confederation to allow Congress to oppose an import tariff was decisively defeated by the states in November of 1782, and some states had enacted legislation forbidding the representatives from supporting any sort of lifetime pension. Members of the nationalist, quote-unquote, faction in Congress who had supported the tax proposal, including Robert and Gouverneur Morris, James Madison, and Alexander Hamilton, believed that the Army funding issues could be used as a lever to gain for Congress the ability to raise its own revenue. A little bit of 4D chess here, perhaps. They took action, and Cohen identifies three main leaders of the conspiracy: Hamilton, Robert Morris, and Gouverneur Morris. This other historian emphasizes the leadership of Robert Morris. The Army delegation first met with Robert Morris and other nationalists. The politicians convinced McDougall that it was imperative for the Army to remain cooperative while they sought funding. The hope they expressed was to tie the Army's demands to those of the government's other creditors to force opposing congressmen to act. This is before the ratification of the Constitution. If you think that suddenly we just need to like not worry about Congress and just like whatever, just move on from them and don't pay attention to what they're doing, or like who cares, just force them or anything like this. The intransigence of Congress is a perpetual feature in American history. So if you're mad at Congress today, welcome to the club. So there's a whole big thing here about the different debate back and forth about different funding schemes. And so then on the morning of March 10, an unsigned letter began circulating in the Army camp, later acknowledged to be written by Major John Armstrong, Jr., aide to General Gates. The letter decried the Army's condition and the lack of congressional support and called upon the Army to send Congress an ultimatum. Published at the same time was an anonymous call for a meeting of all field officers for 11 a.m. the next day. So then, here is this. George Washington's Newburgh Address was one of the most important speeches in his military career. The soldiers who gathered in Newburgh, New York, were tired, bloody, homesick, and unpaid. They were also on the brink of mutiny. Prior to Washington's speech, the soldiers circulated petitions criticizing the Continental Congress and contemplating widespread insubordination. When Washington heard of these mutinous rumblings, he was horrified. A large-scale mutiny by American soldiers would shatter the public's confidence in the military, vindicate Great Britain's skepticism about the American experiment, and tarnish the young nation in the eyes of the world. Explaining his decision to address the soldiers in Newburgh to Alexander Hamilton, Washington wrote, quote, "I was obliged to rescue them from plunging themselves into a gulf of civil horror from which there might be no receding." Again, like, the parallels to today are just wild. On March 15, 1783, March 15, rather important date, Washington delivered this address to the senior officers of the Continental Army. In his speech, Washington emphasized many themes that he returned to throughout his career, including the importance of public duty, honor, civilian control of the military, and civic republican virtue. At a key moment in the speech, Washington reached into his pocket and revealed for the first time that he had begun wearing glasses, saying, "Gentlemen, you will permit me to put on my spectacles, for I have grown not only gray, but almost blind in the service of my country." Many soldiers were moved to tears. So here is the full text of his speech, the Newburgh Address. "Gentlemen, by an anonymous summons, an attempt has been made to convene you together. How inconsistent with the rules of propriety, how unmilitary, and how subversive of all order and discipline. Let the good sense of the army decide." In the moment of this summons, another anonymous production was sent into circulation, addressed more to the feelings and passions than to the reason and judgment of the army. The author of the piece is entitled to much credit for the goodness of his pen, and I could wish he had as much credit for the rectitude of his heart. For, as men see through different optics and are induced by the reflecting faculties of the mind to use different means to attain the same end, the author of the address should have had more charity than to mark for suspicion the man who should recommend moderation and longer forbearance. Or in other words, who should not think as he thinks and act as he advises. So he's saying it was it's rather impertinent and inappropriate to have these anonymous summons and productions being made. And the person who wrote the piece is a very good writer, but he questions his motives, says that these are suspicious, subversive motives here, and in particular because he is saying that someone who's recommending moderation and longer forbearance is worthy of suspicion. No, we're not going fast enough. We're not going hard enough. We need something dramatic. We need big action. And anybody who's saying to stick it out, to, I don't know, trust the plan, perhaps, you can't trust them. The Panikin versus Truster dialectic has been with America from the beginning. The speech continues. But he had another plan in view, in which candor and liberality of sentiment, regard to justice and love of country have no part. And he was right to insinuate the darkest suspicion, to effect the blackest designs. That the address is drawn with great art and is designed to answer the most insidious purposes. That it is calculated to impress the mind with an idea of premeditated injustice in the sovereign power of the United States, and rouse all those resentments which must unavoidably flow from such a belief. That the secret mover of this scheme, whoever he may be, intended to take advantage of the passions while they were warmed by the recollection of past distresses, without giving time for cool, deliberative thinking, and that composure of mind which is so necessary to give dignity and stability to measures is rendered too obvious by the mode of conducting the business to need other proof than a reference to the preceding. I'll also say that the level of rhetoric and discourse and grasp of language and concepts that these guys had is unreal. Thus much, gentlemen, I have thought it incumbent on me to observe to you, to show upon what principles I opposed the irregular and hasty meeting which was proposed to have been held on Tuesday last. And not because I wanted a disposition to give you every opportunity consistent with your own honor and the dignity of the army to make known your grievances. If my conduct heretofore has not evinced to you that I have been a faithful friend to the army, my declaration of it at this time would be equally unavailing and improper. But as I was among the first who embarked in the cause of our common country, as I have never left your side one moment, but when called from you on public duty, as I have been the constant companion and witness of your distresses, and not among the last to feel and acknowledge your merits, as I have ever considered my own military reputation as inseparably connected with that of the army, as my heart has ever expanded with joy when I have heard its praises, and my indignation has arisen when the mouth of detraction has been opened against it, it can scarcely be supposed at this late stage of the war that I am indifferent to its interests. Zoomer Dillon says, our first president dropping troops. No kidding. He's like, you guys are absurd if you think that I don't care. If you're going to question my commitment to you or my honor or my willingness to sacrifice for you guys, I've been in the shit with you. I've been down in the muck. I've been here with you every step of the way. And that is why, where was the thing he said? My declaration of it at this time would be equally unavailing and improper if my conduct had not been that I was proving to be a faithful friend to the army. Then appealing to my own personal honor would be silly. But he's saying, no, I have proven myself to you. And you owe me this trust and deference to my judgment. But how are they to be promoted? So they being the interests of the army. How are they to be promoted? The way is plain, says the anonymous addresser. If war continues, remove into the unsettled country. There, remember the frontier? There's this place out here. They're like, we'll just leave. We're just going to leave. We're just going to take our ball and we're going to go home. We're going to hole ourselves off out there in the wilderness. We've stuck through all of this. We don't deserve to be treated this way anymore, so we're taking our ball and going home. Some things change. Many things stay the same. So the way is plain, says the anonymous addresser. If war continues, remove into the unsettled country, there establish yourself, and leave an ungrateful country to defend itself. But who are they to defend? Our wives, our children, our farms, and other property which we leave behind us, or in this state of hostile separation, are we to take the two first? So the wives and children. The latter cannot be removed. You can't pick up your farm and move it. So are we to take the wives and children and perish in a wilderness with hunger and cold and nakedness? If peace takes place, never sheathe your sword, says he, until you have obtained full and ample justice. So the alternative. So if war continues, we're just going to pull up stakes and leave. We're going to go out into the frontier and fuck all you guys, fend for yourselves. And the alternative is, if there actually is peace, then take up arms against the new American government and extract your pound of flesh from them. He says this dreadful alternative of either deserting our country in the extremest hour of her distress or turning our army against it, which is the apparent object unless Congress can be compelled into an instant compliance, has something so shocking in it that humanity revolts at the idea. My God, what can this writer have in view by recommending such measures? Can he be a friend to the army? Can he be a friend to this country? Rather, is he not an insidious foe? Some emissary, perhaps, from New York, which is currently occupied by Britain. Some emissary, perhaps, from New York, plotting the ruin of both by sowing the seeds of discord and separation between the civil and military powers of the continent. And what a compliment does he pay to our understandings when he recommends measures in either alternative impracticable in their nature? So basically, like, if I'm understanding this last sentence here, he's saying that he's basically insulting us with these suggestions by saying our only two options are these two completely unreasonable options. So someone who's coming in here and advocating that you either take up arms against Congress or take up arms or against the civilian government or just abandon, leave. That these are so absurd that they couldn't even come from someone on the inside. This must be some sort of foreign propaganda. But here, gentlemen, I will drop the curtain, because it would be as imprudent in me to assign my reasons for this opinion as it would be insulting to your conception to suppose you stood in need of them. So if I'm just going to speculate about what his motivations are, then it would be imprudent, and you can come up with them on your own. It's imprudent of me to suppose that you stand in need of my reasons for whatever, for me to try to read the guy's mind. A moment's reflection will convince every dispassionate mind of the physical impossibility of carrying either proposal into execution. So essentially, obviously this must be some sort of subversive influence, but we don't need to speculate about what the motivations are, because we can just weigh the options and clearly neither one is acceptable. There might, gentlemen, be an impropriety in my taking notice, in this address to you, of an anonymous production. But the manner in which that performance has been introduced to the Army, the effect it was intended to have, together with some other circumstances, will amply justify my observations on the tendency of that writing. So, like, why are you even coming out here and talking about this like anonymous thing? Someone couldn't even put their name to it. Why are you taking it seriously? With respect to the advice given by the author to suspect the man who shall recommend moderate measures and longer forbearance, I spurn it, as every man who regards that liberty and reveres that justice for which we contend undoubtedly must. For if men are to be precluded from offering their sentiments on a matter which may involve the most serious and alarming consequences that can invite the consideration of mankind, reason is of no use to us. The freedom of speech may be taken away, and dumb and silent we may be led like speech to the slaughter. So making an appeal to freedom of speech here. I cannot, in justice to my own belief, and what I have great reason to conceive is the intention of Congress, conclude this address without giving it as my decided opinion, that honorable body entertain exalted sentiments of the services of the Army, and from a full conviction of its merits and sufferings will do it complete justice, that their endeavors to discover and establish funds for this purpose have been unwearied, and will not cease till they have succeeded, I have not a doubt. So he's arguing on behalf of Congress here. He's saying that they are working on it. Progress is being made. I know it's hard to be patient. Take my word for it. I'm planting my own reputation at stake here. Take my word for it. But like all other large bodies where there is a variety of different interests to reconcile, their deliberations are slow. Why then should we distrust them? And in consequence of that distrust, adopt measures which may cast a shade over that glory which has been so justly acquired, and tarnish the reputation of an army which is celebrated through all Europe for its fortitude and patriotism. And for what is this done? To bring the object we seek for nearer? No, most certainly, in my opinion, it will cast it at a greater distance. So he's telling them, okay, so you're going to take up arms against Congress, and then what? Is this going to make it easier for you to get what you want? No, obviously it's going to make it much harder to get what you want. And you're not just affecting yourself. You're talking about rendering moot everything that you fought and died for. Casting a shade over that glory which has been so justly acquired, and tarnishing the reputation of an army which is celebrated through all Europe. It was unthinkable that the American army could stand up to Great Britain. But they did. And so then everyone's like, holy shit, okay, we got to take these Americans seriously. And now you're just going to You're just going to turn around and like attack the very people you just fought to liberate? For myself, and I take no merit in giving the assurance, being induced to it from principles of gratitude, veracity, and justice, a grateful sense of the confidence you have ever placed in me, a recollection of the cheerful assistance and prompt obedience I have experienced from you under every vicissitude of fortune, and the sincere affection I feel for an army I have so long had the honor to command, will oblige me to declare, in this public and solemn manner, that in the attainment of complete justice for all your toils and dangers, and in the gratification of every wish, so far as may be done consistently with the great duty I owe my country and those powers we are bound to respect, you may freely command my services to the utmost of my abilities. So in other words, he's like swearing to them of his own commitment to serving them. Again, I'm staking my reputation on this, and you can avail yourselves of my services. Thank you, Flicker Rate. While I give you these assurances and pledge myself in the most unequivocal manner to exert whatever ability I am possessed of in your favor, let me entreat you, gentlemen, on your part, not to take any measures which, viewed in the calm light of reason, will lessen the dignity and sully the glory you have hitherto maintained. Let me request you to rely on the plighted faith of your country and place a full confidence in the purity of the intentions of Congress. That previous to your dissolution as an army, they will cause all your accounts to be fairly liquidated, as directed in their resolutions, which were published to you 2 days ago, and that they will adopt the most effectual measures in their power to render ample justice to you for your faithful and meritorious services. And let me conjure you, in the name of our common country, as you value your own sacred honor, as you respect the rights of humanity, and as you regard the military and national character of America, to express your utmost horror and detestation of the man who wishes, under any specious pretenses, to overturn the liberties of our country, and who wickedly attempts to open the floodgates of civil discord and deluge our rising empire in blood. Our rising empire. Even then, he's talking about it as a rising empire. More on this here in just a moment. By thus determining and thus acting, you will pursue the plain and direct road to the attainment of your wishes. He's literally saying, trust the plan. This is literally George Washington's trust the plan speech. You will defeat the insidious designs of our enemies, who are compelled to resort from open force to secret artifice. He's saying, like, we've defeated them on the battlefield. Now they're trying to subvert us from the inside. They're trying to rouse your passions, stir up resentment, and start setting yourself against your own people. Where have we seen this pattern? You will give one more distinguished proof of unexampled patriotism and patient virtue, rising superior to the pressure of the most complicated sufferings. And you will, by the dignity of your conduct, afford occasion for posterity to say, when speaking of the glorious example you have exhibited to mankind, had this day been wanting, the world had never seen the last stage of perfection to which human nature is capable of attaining. George Washington, to the general, field, and other officers assembled at the new building, pursuant to the general order of the 11th instant March. That was the man who became the first president. Pale Morning Dude said, Matt's making this up. It fits too well with today. George probably kissed the wall. Yeah. Incredible. Incredible. Who would have thought that there was an extensive disquisition from our first president bludgeoning the panicans of his day and telling them, you must trust the plan. George Washington. You take that back, slutty milk. Don't you slander my president so. Oh, Benjamin. Benjamin Franklin Yahoo.
He could only have gotten that idea from Benjamin Netanyahu.
Okay, now, I've had this one sitting in the hopper for a little while, and it fits in perfectly here. A continental empire. Andrew Beck shared this. Curiously, while the founders most often referred to America as a republic, they did not shy away from speaking of her as an empire as well. By empire, however, they meant what Montesquieu called a society of societies, or a confederate republic. The American empire would be unlike any other empire in world history. An empire founded upon reflection and choice, and not accident and force, in the words of Hamilton in Federalist 1. Since empires, by definition, are regimes of crushing force and imperial conquest, an American empire characterized by reason and virtue would be a novelty in world history. This, written by Ben R. Crenshaw in The American Mind, a separate and equal station, the founders' case against American hegemony. The character of our Novus Ordo Seclorum. I want to add a U in here. Secularum. Novus Ordo Seclorum. If George Washington and John Quincy Adams were in the Oval Office advising President Trump on whether to go to war with Iran, what would they have said? They would likely have argued that any American war in the Middle East, whether in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, or Iran, or in partnership with any ally that commits American money, armaments, or troops, is pure folly. Both in theory and practice, early American political leaders unequivocally rejected the claim that America was an empire or world hegemon like those established by Alexander the Great, Imperial Rome, the Mongols, or Napoleon. Instead, America was a new kind of regime, unseen in world history. A republican empire of liberty, limited in constitutional scope and political geography, but unlimited in the power of her political spirit and her example to the world. By the way, I got to crack open. Can I get it to show up here? Put it by my face. It's just going to block it out. Yeah, it's the American Berry Bang. Very, very good. I'm sorry, monster. This is superior. Equal nations. The preamble of the Declaration of Independence includes a curious phrase often overlooked by commentators. And to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. What did the founders mean? What did they mean by this? What did the founders mean by a separate and equal station? And what does this phrase tell us about their conception of America's political regime? The international relations paradigm the founders were working within was the jus gentium, or the law of nations. While it has an ancient pedigree, its modern formulation was established with the 1625 publication of Hugo Grotius's magnum opus on the law of war and peace. As articulated by Grotius and other thinkers, nations are moral persons with a political ontology, duties, and rights of their own. In essence, the application of the law of nature, usually applied to persons, to nations. All nations, a specific people organized politically, possess a natural and intrinsic sovereignty, and the political institutions and leaders of each nation owe their allegiance only to the citizens of that nation, not to the citizens of other nations, nor to humanity writ large, nor to abstract principles of human rights, nor to international organizations in Brussels. The jurist and philosopher Aimé de Vattel argued that since all nations are equal, quote, none can naturally lay claim to any superior prerogative. For whatever privileges any one of them derives from freedom and sovereignty, the others equally derive the same from the same source, end quote. For Vattel, the rights of a nation included its domain, or the right a nation has to its land and its resources, and its empire, or imperium, or the right of sovereign command by which a nation directs or regulates its internal business. At the same time, however, Vattel noted that a nation did not have the right, quote, to extend by violence the bounds of empire. Violence against other nations occurs either when a people are driven out of their domain or when a foreign power subdues them, abolishing their imperium, that is, their sovereignty, both of which violate natural standards of justice. The American founders uniformly held to these ideas. Their opposition to the abuses of Parliament was, in part, an objection to the British Empire's illegitimate extension of its imperium, namely, its attempt to dominate the colonists without their consent by abolishing the legislatures and their right to control internal domestic policy, such as taxation and representation. The Declaratory Act of 1776 had proclaimed that Parliament was supreme in all matters. The American colonists, in effect, were no longer American citizens subject to British law. They were reduced to slavery in their own country by a violent external imperium. This reality is why the Declaration explicitly presents the justification for the separate and equal station of national state sovereignty. More than a fashionable theory or pragmatic play, national sovereignty was the right of every nation per the laws of nature and of nature's God. The Americans declared that this was right and just, guaranteed by natural and divine law to each people, and that the British, therefore, were accountable to the supreme judge of the world for their imperial ambitions and abuses. The alpha and omega of politics. The belief among the founding generation in national sovereignty under the Jus Gentium was not a flash in the pan of the Revolutionary era. In his famous farewell address, George Washington exhorted his listeners to treat all nations fairly. Quoting, "Observe good faith and justice towards all nations. Cultivate peace and harmony with all. Religion and morality enjoin this conduct. And can it be that good policy does not equally enjoin it?" He warned about the kind of untoward attachments or hostilities toward other peoples that would corrupt the hearts of citizens and their officials, eventually leading to perilous foreign policies. Quote, "Nothing is more essential than that permanent, inveterate antipathies against particular nations and passionate attachments for others should be excluded, and that in place of them, just and amicable feelings towards all should be cultivated." Isn't this interesting? You hear very often his farewell address is often cited for his what's the term? His exhortation against foreign entanglements, but it's treated as like hostile foreign entanglements. But there's also having too much affection for other nations. Everyone should receive just and amicable feelings. Which does, again, remind me of the way that Trump conducts his foreign policy, which is if, like, there's the people that we're in, like, I'm inheriting these conflicts where there's declarations of war and there's military current states of being that I'm coming in to manage. But, like, he's like, I'm not here to destroy the Iranian people. I'm not at war with the Iranian people. And I want every nation that he just wants to negotiate a deal with them. He wants to have just and amicable feelings towards everyone. And in many cases, his administration, their strongest statements toward other nations are directed at exhorting other nations to the same standard. You need to be protecting your own interests, advocating in your own interests, and protecting your people. Yeah, he also didn't want any hyphenated Americans. That's exactly it. There were no hyphenated Americans. There could be. It was antithetical to the concept of America to have hyphenated Americans. Washington's warning was not primarily about policy or pragmatism, but about how these attachments and animosities would corrupt the American people. Quote, "The nation which indulges towards another an habitual hatred or an habitual fondness is in some degree a slave," Washington said. "It is a slave to its animosity or to its affection, either of which is sufficient to lead it astray from its duty and its interest." Undue foreign hostility leads to frequent collisions and bloody contests, Washington noted. Nations possessed in this way will be, quote, "prompted by ill will and resentment and be, quote, impelled to war contrary to the best calculations of policy." Likewise, passionate attachments produce their own evils. Quoting, "Sympathy for the favorite nation, facilitating the illusion of an imaginary common interest in cases where no real common interest exists, and infusing into one the enmities of the other, betrays the former into a participation in the quarrels and wars of the latter without adequate inducement or justification. It leads also to concessions to the favorite nation of privileges denied to others, which is apt doubly to injure the nation making the concessions, and by exciting jealousy, ill will, and a disposition to retaliate in the parties from whom equal privileges are withheld. Making the pragmatic case that you should just treat all other nations equally. The victims of these hostilities and attachments are the peace and liberty of all nations. For these reasons, Washington exhorted patriotic Americans, quote, against the insidious wiles of foreign influence, declaring that, quote, the jealousy of a free people ought to be constantly awake, since history and experience prove that foreign influence is one of the most baneful foes of Republican government. In a well-known speech for the 1821 4th of July celebration, John Quincy Adams echoed the principles Washington laid out. He drew a distinction between a nation and an empire, asserting that America was not like other empires in world history, gobbling up neighboring peoples and subsuming them into an ever-expanding imperial sovereignty. Rather, she would maintain her separate and equal station while defending the same rights of others. Quote, she is the well-wisher to the freedom and independence of all. She is the champion and vindicator only of her own, Adams averred. If America, quote, enlists under the banners of foreign independence and interferes in the concerns of others for the sake of slaying monsters abroad, Adams argued, she will become forever entangled beyond her own powers of extrication. And worse yet, her people will no longer be free and independent, no longer the defender of liberty and an example to the world of a just and righteous nation. Instead, she will have traded her national sovereignty for a sickly imperial crown of conquest and power, dominated by a libido dominandi fit for slaves who have allowed their baser passions to master reason and wisdom. Beyond Washington's and Adams' articulations of the American regime and way of life lay a common assessment of the ends of foreign policy. Rather than being about overseas adventure, a quest for natural resources, or the accumulation of power and fame, foreign policy should always serve domestic policy. As Thomas G. West has succinctly put it, the, quote, purpose of foreign policy should be limited to self-preservation or necessity, because all policy, foreign and domestic, should be in the service of one thing, the well-being or happiness of society. And I could see in this, too, the trajectory of the Trump administration in their negotiations and diplomatic engagements with both friend and foe is even the friends they're receding from. There's this expectation that you need to bear your own burdens. You need to step up to the plate. You need to be a free and independent nation so that we can properly engage with you. And to the extent that you can do that and can demonstrate that, then we can engage with you as a free and independent nation. And that's when you're going to get the best terms. But if you're not going to step forth and advocate for your own people, if you're not going to uphold the status of the free and independent nation, then you're going to be held further at a distance. A strong and independent nation need no man. That's right. Please do tip your streamer, folks. Tips.kingpill.com. A well-ordered and excellent human life, the very purpose of politics, precludes the domination of others through slavery, heavy taxation, wealth extraction, or military impressment, what empires notoriously do. As Plato and Aristotle taught, every political regime begins as a city of pigs for the sake of mere survival. But every good and completely self-sufficient Callipolis, a beautiful city, transcends material needs for the sake of living well. Foreign policy is critical to both ends, but it is primarily oriented toward the former, while domestic policy is oriented towards the latter. It is for this reason that the American founders rejected Machiavelli's claim in the Discourses on Livy that all republics must expand or die. Likewise, they rejected the argument of Montesquieu, embraced by many anti-federalists, that republics must remain small if they are to succeed. Instead, Alexander Hamilton appealed to Montesquieu in Federalist 9 in contending that the solution to the problems inherent in both small and large republics is a confederate republic, which combines the strengths of monarchies, command and defense, with those of traditional republics, virtue and homogeneity. The Constitution sought to establish this political form, a partially consolidated confederate republic, splitting the difference between small republics vulnerable to external conquest and large republics, that is, empires, vulnerable to internal corruption. It extended the republican sphere in terms of both geography and the people's interests, but it did so without creating a traditional empire. As Hamilton argued in Federalist 22, the American empire would not exist by force. Instead, quote, the fabric of American empire ought to rest on the solid basis of the consent of the people. Understanding America's unique political regime is the only way to make sense of her behavior during the ensuing decades of the early republic. American foreign policy was characterized by a principled neutrality that refused to become entangled in foreign affairs or expand an imperial footprint abroad. Yet at the same time, America expanded westward, adding new states as she increasingly became a continental empire. Washington's lesson. During the French Revolutionary Wars, which involved France, Great Britain, Austria, Prussia, and Russia, George Washington issued his now famous Neutrality Proclamation, declaring that both, quote, the duty and interest of the United States require that they should, with sincerity and good faith, adopt and pursue a conduct friendly and impartial toward the belligerent powers, end quote. Since America was not at war with any of the European powers, Washington applied the principle of the Declaration to, quote, hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. Appealing to the jus gentium, the proclamation further announced that, quote, prosecutions will be instituted against all persons who shall, within the cognizance of the courts of the United States, violate the law of nations with respect to the powers at war or any of them, end quote. In other words, Washington was placing the American nation under international natural law rather than international legal positivism, a rules-based order, or the will of a stronger imperium. And it was a principle he was willing to enforce. When the French envoy Edmond Charles Genet arrived in America in 1793 and began stirring up trouble, Washington demanded his recall. The most famous statement of America's principled neutrality, of course, was the Monroe Doctrine, issued by President James Monroe in his seventh message to Congress in late 1823. Monroe declared that Europe must stay out of the affairs of the Western Hemisphere, and that likewise America would not meddle in European matters. This was not merely a judgment of national security or foreign practicality, but a principled political decision, given that Europe was geographically distinct from America. European nations with shifting borders required standing armies for continual enforcement and protection. Standing armies required powerful central governments, like monarchies, to command their loyalty. Monarchies were supported by the aristocracy and class distinctions, while the people were often heavily taxed to pay the soldiers and unrepresented. Yet America was fundamentally different. She was buffeted by thousands of miles of oceans, and there were no imperial powers or peer competitors in the West to challenge her expansion and peaceful prosperity. Accordingly, she relied more upon citizen-state militias for the enforcement of internal order, which cultivated the martial virtues of the American people. This gave them independence in thought and strength in action. Americans were vigorous economically and politically, asserting the right to control their own political officials, to keep and put their private property to good use, to protect their liberties against undue encroachments, and to refuse to bend the knee to would-be despots or enslaving taxes. Understood in this light, the Monroe Doctrine was an example of foreign policy in the service of the well-being and happiness of the American people, of preserving their way of life. The author of Monroe's speech was, we suspect, none other than John Quincy Adams, Monroe's Secretary of State at the time and perhaps America's finest statesman on matters of foreign policy. An example of Adams' preeminence and wisdom was his handling of the Greek Revolution, in which he stated that the chief aim of U.S. foreign policy had, quote, been founded upon the moral principle of natural law, peace with all mankind. Seen from that light, before America would acknowledge the revolutionaries by giving them financial and military aid, and deal with them as a separate sovereign nation, the Greeks would need to win their revolution and establish a de facto government. As Adams wrote to Andreas Luriatus, the agent for the Greek provisional government, quote, but while cheering with the best wishes the cause of the Greeks, the United States are forbidden by the duties of their situation from taking part in the war, to which their relation is that of neutrality. At peace themselves with all the world, their established policy and the obligations of the law of nations preclude them from becoming voluntary auxiliaries to a cause which would involve them in war. The principled restraint of John Quincy Adams is shocking to American ears and quite frankly lies far outside the current Overton window. Over the past 80 years, America has been the world's foremost superpower, exerting hegemonic control at will, economically, financially, and militarily. Principled neutrality was abandoned long ago. A Republican empire of liberty. Curiously, while the founders most often referred to America as a republic, they did not shy away from speaking of her as an empire as well. By empire, however, they meant what Montesquieu called a society of societies, or confederate republic. The American empire would be unlike any other empire in world history, an empire founded upon reflection and choice, and not accident and force, in the words of Hamilton in Federalist I. Since empires by definition are regimes of crushing force and imperial conquest, an American empire characterized by reason and virtue would be a novelty in world history. They were well aware that they were engaged in a practice of political innovation. They were creating something altogether unique on the world stage, so to speak. And they did. They did create something fundamentally unique. Thomas Jefferson is renowned for describing America as an empire of liberty. In a letter to George Rogers Clark during the Revolutionary War, he declared that, quote, "We shall form to the American Union a barrier against the dangerous extension of the British province of Canada, and add to the empire of liberty an extensive and fertile country, thereby converting dangerous enemies into valuable friends," end quote. Later, during his second presidential term and shortly after the acquisition of the Louisiana Territory in 1803, Jefferson wrote to Benjamin Chambers saying, quote, "By enlarging the empire of liberty, we multiply its auxiliaries and provide new sources of renovation, should its principles at any time degenerate in those portions of our country which gave them birth." Jefferson reflected this understanding in another 1803 letter, this time to John Breckinridge, as he described the process of adding new territories and states to the Union. Instead of viewing them as resources to be conquered and exploited or persons to be colonized and enslaved, as was so often the case in imperial and European history, the American approach was that of a father to a son, the engrafting of peoples who would be made into fellow kinsmen and incorporated into an existing constitution and way of life, a life of virtue, liberty, and happiness. As Angelo Codevilla explained, Jefferson's view was that, quote, "America would be the first empire that acquired territories not to rule them, but to be ruled by them." This did not mean, of course, that every Western territory and its people were fit for state incorporation. One of the thorny issues in the mid-19th century debate over manifest destiny and westward expansion was whether the Mexican territories taken in the Mexican-American War, known as the Mexican Cession, ought to be included in the Union. But it did emphasize that America was willing to incorporate only those who were capable of virtuous self-government and an orderly and peaceable life. In other words, those capable of being Americans. In the early decades of the Republic, America and her founders had done what political philosophers had long thought impossible. They established an extended yet limited republic, secure against conquest from without and protective of virtuous citizenship within. America was a republican empire of liberty. And there is something that is ingenious about the political structure, the innovation in political technology that they established. The ability of the ability of it to scale while maintaining an internal coherence. And it seems funny to say this now, but I think that's because we seriously underappreciate how miraculous America is even today in her current state. The ability to which we have been able to incorporate different peoples and still maintain our general character as Americans. Obviously, this is something that has been very much under threat, and that isn't because of something natural or inherent about America or Americans. We've been attacked from our flank, and that American character has been undermined and eroded. And this was, like all the different founding fathers in one way or another said something to the effect of the stability of America is going to depend upon the character of its people. But I think that this is worth it's worth recalling how, or I guess not recalling, but contemplating, I suppose, how early in its history America still is. And we haven't formally added to the Union for a long time, but that doesn't mean that we can't. And there are pretexts for how territory is incorporated into the Union. And what constitutes political sovereignty and what makes a political entity today has definitely changed through globalization, through financialization becoming a thing that's caused all these, like, even if you have ostensibly separate sovereign nations, they're so deeply financially intertwined that they are functioning effectively as a single entity. And there's a lot of, let's say, cobwebs in the shadows that have to be flushed out, have to be cleared out. But there is a baseline here for how the American imperium continues to expand. And I think it's pretty clear, if you were an alien that was to come here and survey, somehow you could view all of human history and you could look at America today, you'd be like, oh yeah, clearly America's like on the upswing and it expanded out, it contained the whole continent. Then it's going to expand out and it's going to contain the entire hemisphere. This may take hundreds of years for it to happen formally, but once upon a time, it was insane to think of going on the other side of the Appalachian Mountains, or on the other side of the which mountain range is it? To extend out into the Ohio Valley, to extend out into the Louisiana Purchase. This was this wild, untamed wilderness. And if you would have said America within a couple hundred years is going to have completely settled the entire continent and mapped it from north to south and east to west and be extended beyond it, it would have been unfathomable to people at that time. So some of these things may seem unfathomable today, but you gotta retain your awareness of where you are in history. A couple other things here, a couple tweets from the same account, Echoes of War, and then I'm going to play you guys a video, and we'll wrap with that. Please do tip your streamer, folks. Amy says, burr the second Erickson Fund. Yes, contribute to the second Erickson Fund. No freeloading. Every little bit counts. Tips.kingpill.com. John Adams nicknamed him the Deliberator because he refused to rush into anything. So when this man calmly weighed the odds and then bet his entire fortune on independence, it meant something. Meet William Paca. Paca was Maryland aristocracy. Born in 1740 into real wealth, he got a serious education, first at the College of Philadelphia. Then he sailed to London to study law at the Inner Temple, which was a rare and expensive thing for a colonial kid to do. He came home a polished, brilliant lawyer and settled in Annapolis with money, status, and a bright future under British rule. He was not a hothead. This is the key to him. His friend John Adams described him in his day as a deliberator, a man who thought long and hard, who talked things through, who weighed both sides before committing. Paca didn't get swept up in a mob. He reasoned his way to revolution, which arguably takes more courage because he understood exactly what he was risking. And then he committed completely. He and fellow Marylander Samuel Chase helped bankroll a local chapter of the Sons of Liberty, the underground resistance network. He put his own money into the cause early when it was dangerous to do so. Then he served in the Continental Congress and signed the Declaration of Independence, staking his fortune and his neck on it. It's interesting to think about at that time, like the Continental Congress would have been seen as like it's like a fake knockoff of British Parliament. It's like, oh yeah, you guys got your little Congress over there. You've got your little army. You cute little savage colonials. You live with like, you live in and amongst all the Africans and the savage Native Americans, and you're like these grody, dirty people. You don't have any sort of like, you don't have these posh uniforms that you get in and you march across the field and in strict lines and. So to have like this colonial kid who manages to get this great education and come back and then live in both of those worlds, like living in the world where you still see yourself as a British subject, as aspiring to that, like this is the upper class, the aspirational thing, and yet you're also now bound to your homeland and your people, and the land itself is beginning to change the people who live there, who feel grounded there. That's something that the movie does address. Interestingly, I was curious to see how they would portray the Brits, and I won't give anything away. It's not like really overt, But they definitely do portray the fact that the Brits they saw this as some, we're going off to some foreign land. They don't have like a personal attachment to it. Whereas the colonists definitely did, and were beginning to feel that, which is then something that they shared with the Native Americans who were there. There's all these different levels of conflict. You have the imperial conflicts as they're trying to, the French and the Brits, and then you have the Portuguese and the Spanish, and the different empires that are trying to extend their own reaches in various parts of the continent. But then you have the natives who live there. Then you have the slaves. Then you have the colonists, and there's all these different levels of power and political attachments, and then even the natives themselves had their own factions, and then the states had their own factionalism toward one another. It's just remarkable that a real people formed itself out of that whole thing. When the war actually came, Paca kept spending. He reached into his own deep pockets to help supply and support Maryland's troops, using his personal wealth to keep the fight going when public funds ran dry. He carried private grief through all of it, too. He'd buried his young wife and several of his children over the years, losing his family even as he poured himself into building a country. Unlike a lot of signers, Paca's story doesn't end in ruin. He survived the war and kept serving. He became governor of Maryland, and later George Washington personally appointed him a federal judge, a post he held until he died in 1799. He also left something you can still walk through today. His elegant Annapolis home, the Paca House and Garden, still stands as a national landmark, a surviving piece of a founding father's actual world. A rich man who didn't have to risk a thing, who thought it through more carefully than anyone, and chose to gamble it all anyway. William Paca, the deliberator who decided freedom was worth everything. And then this one. The most influential immigrant group in American history is the one nobody argues about, because almost nobody remembers it was them. Start at the beginning. The Continental Army was a half-trained mess until Baron von Steuben, a Prussian officer, showed up at Valley Forge and drilled it into a real fighting force. The freedom of the press you take for granted traces back to John Peter Zenger, a German immigrant printer whose 1735 trial established that you can't be jailed for printing the truth. German Americans were shaping this country before there was a country. Then look around your own life. Your Christmas tree is German. The hot dog, Frankfurt. The hamburger, Hamburg. The pretzel, the delicatessen, all German. Kindergarten is German, the word and the idea brought over and opened by Marguerite Schurz. Blue jeans came from Levi Strauss of Bavaria. Heinz ketchup, Steinway pianos, Oscar Mayer, and the big four beers, Budweiser, Pabst, Miller, and Schlitz, were every one founded by German immigrants. The Brooklyn Bridge was engineered by John Roebling, born in Prussia. The Santa Claus you picture every December, plus the Republican elephant, were drawn by Thomas Nast, a German immigrant. Pfizer was founded by Charles Pfizer, who arrived from Germany in 1848. Boeing was built by the son of a German immigrant. John Jacob Astor showed up from Germany with next to nothing and became America's first multimillionaire. Charles Steinmetz, a disabled immigrant nearly turned away at the border, went on to make modern electrical power possible. And it kept going. Wernher von Braun designed the rocket that put America on the moon. Tell me more. Einstein was German. Karl Schurz, a refugee, became a Union general and the first German-born U.S. senator. Eisenhower commanded D-Day and won the White House under a name once spelled Eisenhower. Babe Ruth was a German-American kid from Baltimore. Here is the kicker. German is the single largest ancestry group in the entire United States, around 44 million people, bigger than Irish, English, or Italian. The biggest thread in the whole American fabric, and somehow the quietest. They never asked for parades. They just trained the army, freed the press, engineered the bridges, founded the companies, built the rockets, and lit up the Christmas mornings, then blended in so completely you forgot they were ever the other. That might be the most American story there is. And speaking of Germans, listen to this guy.
Europe lied to me about America, but not in the way you think. Because I didn't move here because I hated Germany. I moved here because I fell in love with an American. And 2 years later, I have to admit something that makes many of my old friends angry. Because the country I was taught to look down on made me more hopeful, more ambitious, and more free than I ever imagined. And that is uncomfortable. Because it means America was not the country I misunderstood. Maybe Europe made me misunderstand myself. And this year the timing is almost too perfect. America turns 250 years old. Happy birthday, USA. The World Cup is happening here, and right now Europeans are having the same moment I had 2 years ago. They arrive with jokes, they arrive
Thank you, Mr. Kraut, sir.
with opinions, they arrive thinking they already understand America. And then normal America hits them in the face. Not Hollywood America, not political America, just normal America. And that is exactly what breaks the story Europe told. When I watch this World Cup tourists, I see myself 2 years ago. I see that moment where the America I was warned about disappeared. 2 years ago, on July 1st, I moved from Germany to the United States of America. And I did not just move countries. I moved from a culture of caution into a culture of courage. And I was not ready for what would do that to me. Because Germany gave me a lot. It gave me structure, discipline, education, a strong work ethic. And I'm very grateful for that. I am German. I still think like that in many ways. I still overanalyze things. I still want everything to be planned. I still get nervous when something is not organized. And sometimes I still look angry even when I'm having a great time. But Germany also gave me something I had to unlearn. A voice in my head.
We love our German autists, don't we, boys? I resemble that remark.
Had that said, be careful, do not stand out, do not dream too big, do not be too proud, do not risk too much, and definitely do not say America might actually be amazing. That voice was not always loud, it sounded reasonable, it sounded mature, but slowly it made my world smaller, and I did not even notice it until I moved here. That is what Europe does to a lot of people. It does not crush your dreams dramatically, it just makes them feel embarrassing. You say you want to start something, people ask, why? You say you want to move somewhere.
It doesn't crush your dreams, it just makes them embarrassing. Like the most female influence thing of all time.
People ask, are you sure? You say you want to build a business. People explain the taxes. You say you want to start a YouTube channel. People say, who the hell is gonna watch that? And after hearing that long enough, you start doing it to yourself. You become your own German comment section in your head. That was me. And then I came to America. And
You become your own German comment section in your head. What a line.
America asked me questions I was not used to. Why not? Why not try? Why not build something? Why not start over? Why not you? These questions can change your life. Because in Europe, people ask, who gave you permission? In
This is George Washington's entire life. Why not us?
America, the question is, why haven't you started yet? That is a completely different culture. Europeans think America is loud because Americans are stupid. No, America is loud because America is still alive. Europeans think American optimism is fake. No, maybe Europeans are just not used to people who still believe tomorrow can be better. And they also think American confidence is arrogance. No, maybe they just forgot what courage looks like. And the first time I realized that America's right was not some huge patriotic moment. It was in a store. One of my first days here, I was still full in German mode. I was overthinking everything. Where do I stand? Am I in someone's way? Is my accent too strong? And then a random guy looked at me and said, hey man, how is it going? And I froze because my German brain immediately thought, who's this person? Does he want money? Is this a scam? Or is he just messing with me? No, he was just being nice. That sounds like nothing, but when you come from a place where strangers often treat each other like obstacles, that little moment becomes a big moment. It's a culture shock. Europeans say American friendliness is fake. I used to think that too. Now I think that sentence says more about Europe than about America. Because if warmth feels fake to you, maybe you have lived too long without it. Sometimes
If warmth feels fake to you, perhaps you've lived too long without it. There's something I still haven't completely worked all the thoughts out in my head, but there was something as I was watching Young Washington and watching the way that they portrayed both the slaves and the Indians, and how the Virginians and the slaves and the Indians all were kind of pressed together into common cause just by basically just the circumstances. They were forced because they all had they all had their own reasons, but they all had the common desire to fight for their lives and their ability to be where they were. And there was something that defined America from the very beginning.
A smile is just a smile. Sometimes small talk is just kindness. Sometimes a compliment is not fake. Sometimes people are just trying to make life a little less miserable. And slowly that changed me. I'm still German, so I will probably never become the guy who smiles for no reason all day long. But America made me warmer. I talk more to people now. I encourage people more. I say nice things when I think them. And that matters, because a country where strangers are friendly creates a different kind of a person. And a country where everyone is suspicious of friendliness also creates a very specific kind of person.
It's you can't separate these things from the extent to which America is a propositional nation. Like America is not a propositional nation, but it also is. It's not foundationally a propositional nation, but it does have as part of its fundamental credo the ability to inculcate or to draw people in and to cultivate them there and cultivate them into being American. Because there is something about being American that is something people can assent to, and then they can change their behavior to adapt to being American and acting American, and then having an affection for America qua America in a way that other nations have in many ways, to the extent that they've taken that from America because of how influential the American system became.
That change did not stay small. It changed what I believed was possible. Before America, the idea of me having a YouTube channel was almost ridiculous. I started as a child. I'm an introvert. I'm not a natural performer. English is not my native language. I make a lot of mistakes. I have a very strong accent. And I started at an age where many people in Germany already think, okay, this is your life now. You have your job, you have your routine. Do not do anything too weird. Do not embarrass yourself. When I first...
Dr. Doom Guy! Patriot, sir! Thank you for the $100. What a hero. Hero, patriot, legend, wizard, king. Dr. Doom Guy.
Just talked about doing YouTube, the German reaction were exactly what you expect. Bad idea, too risky, nobody will watch that. And the most German reaction of all, what is the point? That sentence kills dreams. What is the point? The point is to try, the point is to grow, the point is to see what happens. The point is not to die inside before you are dead. But back then...
This goes back as well to the reality that's inherent to ethnogenesis occurring within the context of this great frontier existing in this great continent. Even today, there's so many places you can go inside America. The population density is like microscopic because there's so much America, which is then fundamentally like delimiting to the idea of hopes and dreams. And then the go west young man and the mindset required to settle a hostile land means that there's the selection effect of the people who survived were necessarily the ones who embodied that the most. And then, so there's that, like, they're the ones who passed on their genes, but then they were also having that, say, like epigenetic programming or something happening in real time because of what it means to live in the shadow of this great wilderness versus Europe's population density and how packed in it is, and their like native Europeans haven't had a frontier to conquer in so long that it's begun like being filtered out of their bloodlines, whereas it's fresh and clear for Americans. There's still so much of America left to conquer.
Back then, I actually believed in negativity. So,
like, just because we've mapped everything doesn't mean that we've actually conquered and settled and developed it all.
I started in German first. And honestly, a lot of the feedback was negative. People corrected me, people judged me, people acted like I need permission to speak. And then I had this crazy thought, what if I do it in English? A German guy with a German accent talking to Americans about America. That should not work. At least according to the European mindset. But America does not care if something should work. America cares if you're willing to try. So I tried. And Americans watched. Americans subscribed. Americans commented. Americans told me, we like your perspective. We like your honesty. We like seeing our country through your eyes. And we actually like your accent. And now this channel has over 20,000 subscribers. It might be still small, but to me it's actually insane. Because America gave me permission to try before I was perfect. And
This guy's such a fucking patriot. And I don't know if you can tell, but where is it? Right here. His name, of course, is Toby. Toby Harms. Is every German patriot named Tobias? Is that how it works?
And this explains America better than almost anything else. Europe often wants you perfect before you're even allowed to try. Perfect education, perfect accent, perfect plan. America is different because it says start, build, fall down, try again. But then I noticed something bigger. America feels alive. Europe often feels like a museum with regulations. Beautiful, historic, interesting, very tired. And I know that sounds harsh, but I felt it in my own life. I had a good country, a good job, a safe environment. From the outside, everything looked stable. But inside, it felt like my future had already been assigned to me. Like the path was already written. Like the best thing I could do was not to mess it up. America feels different. America feels different from the beginning. America feels unfinished. And that is the magic. America
Yes! America is unfinished.
is still being built. That is why everything is loud. That is why people argue so much. That is why people move across the country and start businesses. Take risks, fail and try again. Europe looks at that and says, how embarrassing. America looks at that and says, at least he tried. And that difference changed me. And it also changed how I see freedom. In Germany, I always felt like freedom came with a warning label. You can speak your mind, but be careful. You can question things, but be careful. And after a while, you start censoring yourself because freedom is not only what is written on paper. Freedom is also...
Where do you think the I don't know how someone could possibly conclude that the spirit of the Longhouse originates in America. How socially illiterate do you have to be?
It's also what the culture allows you to feel brave enough to do. Germany taught me freedom with a warning label. America taught me freedom with responsibility. And responsibility can be very uncomfortable.
Freedom with a warning label versus freedom with responsibility.
Because freedom means you cannot always blame the state. You cannot always blame society. You have to choose. You have to risk. You have to live with the consequences. That changed me. In Germany, I was used to thinking the state should handle everything. The state regulates, the state protects, the state decides. And of course, there's comfort in that. But that comfort can become a cage. You pay huge taxes, you follow endless rules, you trust the system, and then one day you wake up and realize the system is not building your dream. It is managing your decline. America made me see that. I do not want a life that's perfectly managed. I want a life that is actually mine. Europeans love to feel superior to America because it makes them feel sophisticated. But after living here, I realized that a lot of that superiority is insecurity. Because deep down, many Europeans know America still has something Europe is losing. Energy, confidence, ambition.
I bequeath to you some money. Good day, sir.
Thank you, Dave Combobulated. And Dale. I love it when Dale gives me money. One of the other great American patriots. Thank you, Dave.
Believe, the feeling that the future is still open. Before I came here, I also thought maybe the best times were behind us. You work, you pay tax, you complain, you watch things get worse, you call it realism. And then you get older and you think, that is just how it is. But America made me dream again. And I know.
America made me dream again. Howie says, I remember in high school, we went to see the movie Deep Impact with a German exchange student. He was like, this is so unrealistic. America will never have a black president.
Yes, hello, it's me, a black guy.
See, like, there is, I can understand the case that, like, for example, Yarvin wants to make, that that America is like fundamentally left wing, or like that America was a left wing revolution rebelling against hierarchy, et cetera, et cetera. And this is just trying to superimpose left and right on America from its inception. Really, it's neither. It's its own thing entirely. And so it has characteristics, it has traits that you would associate with leftism. It has like the egalitarian instinct. It has the like openness to experience, openness to new things. It has those kinds of traits, but it doesn't have those things because those things are leftist. And it just the left right thing is just. America is just its own thing entirely. It was a unique political experiment that took root among a unique people who don't break down along the old lines. You can't take American exceptionalism and frame it up in the left-right dichotomy, because America is exceptional. America does have that spirit of exceptionalism, that expectation that America is exceptional and must be exceptional. And yet it also has it rebelled against the rigid class structure of the different European. It modeled itself in some ways off the different European structures, but it also established its own thing where it's both egalitarian and hierarchical simultaneously. It was a brilliant. The older I get, the more maybe this is just me becoming unk. I don't know. It was a brilliant experiment in political science that required such tremendous blessings of providence to actually pull off. And it's still working. We're still working our way through the early stages. Like it's not a beta anymore necessarily. Like we've had our full launch, but it's still on the ascendancy. So yeah, like you're going to wind up in America, you're going to wind up getting a black president because, oh my goodness. What is it?
A Mars rover.
You got a Mars rover.
Solar panel. It's even got a solar panel.
Did you put that solar panel on there?
Mama built this for me.
Mommy built it for you?
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Why is it not showing?
Because there's a special program that makes it not show. Let me see if I can.
Away?
I don't think I can. There we go. If you put it right here, then people can see it. It says right next to my face.
Panel.
Where is it? Oh, it's right here on this side.
Mm-hmm. It's
right,
that's the solar panel.
Right there.
This is my first closest. This is my first close encounter with a solar panel. There's more of these things.
Here, put it up here.
There's more of these pieces.
What are they?
It's part of a drill on here. Can you show the drill? A drill on here. But there's more downstairs, and we can't get them on.
Why can't you get them on?
They don't work.
They don't work? What's it for drilling?
It's for like drilling rock on Mars, but this does not drill through rock.
No?
It doesn't actually drill rock. But look at this amazing rover. It actually rolls. And the front thing, on here actually spins. This spins too, look.
What is that thing for?
It's called a radio wave telescope, and it's for communication and sending and taking in signals. Then this thing, the solar panel, actually puts power into the wheels, and they roll this thing on a deck.
Wow. Whoopsies. Pop the wheel off.
Sometimes the thing doesn't work, and you have to take the solar panel off, give it a little break, and put it back on, or you have to drop it on the sidewalk.
Oh, wow. You have to do some regular maintenance, huh?
Like dropping it on the sidewalk. And that actually works.
Are you a Mars rover maintenance engineer?
And you should also get. I forgot what I was gonna say.
What-
Already, of course I did.
What did you think about George Washington wanting to be one of the redcoats? Why?
Because the redcoats aren't good.
Why?
Because they didn't want us to be free.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Who's your favorite founding father?
I don't have a favorite founding father.
No. We're gonna have to fix that.
How?
Well, you can study them. You can decide which one you like.
That's George Washington?
That's a that's a picture from a movie about George Washington, the one that Mommy and Daddy went and saw the other night. We're gonna show it to you.
Well, we did put stickers on this thing.
Yeah.
I think some of the stickers, like that sticker, these stickers don't look nice, so I'm gonna replace them up here.
Oh, okay. What do you? Whoops.
Whoops.
Wheel fell off.
Whoopsies. Whoopsies.
We need our maintenance engineer to repair the Mars rover. What do you think of Donald Trump? Yeah.
Wait, can this thing get on his shirt? Can it get on his shirt?
Sort of. You kind of got it there. Yeah, there.
Here's a little Mars rover wheel.
Who is Donald Trump?
The president.
Who's president?
That's Daddy's president!
Tell me about him.
He's the president.
Yeah. Do you like him?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did a show talking about how similar he and George Washington were. How similar he is to George Washington. I can tell you more about that as you get older.
Now, I just cleaned off some dirt from here.
Yeah.
Daddy, can you help me get this front panel put off?
Why don't you take that down to Mommy and ask her to help you with that? Because Daddy's got to wrap up the show here.
Okay.
And there's lots of pieces showing up on my desk now. Can I stick these on here?
Stick them on the bottom of the solar panel, here and here.
Okay. I'll put one right there. And the other one right there.
Okay, I'll get them in the position I want them to be.
Here. Take that piece there. Why don't you take them down to Mommy and then you can get them put in the right position there.
She'll do it tomorrow.
She said she'll do it tomorrow? Ah,
She's gonna have me do this tomorrow.
okay. Did you know Donald Trump is your president too?
How do you know?
Because you're an American. Donald Trump is the president of all Americans. The repair is taking some detours. Yeah, he loves Patriots the most.
Nope. Space.
No, Donald Trump loves Patriots the most.
Oh.
I don't know if you could hear him. He said, "No, I love space." Space is your favorite thing? All right.
There we go.
Good job, dude.
Then
Well done.
Engineer Eastwood's putting on a wheel.
Engineer Eastwood is putting on a wheel.
Fresh wheel. Top speed.
Top speed.
I think it's top speed on the deck. Its top speed on the deck is like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't go fast. But it goes this way. That's not the right speed.
It leads with the drill, huh? Oh, wheel fell off again. Why don't you take all the pieces down with you to Mommy?
I'll ask her to do this to get this finished today.
Yeah.
Wait, tonight.
Did you know that space is America too?
What is it?
America controls space. That's our territory. He's giving me a confused look.
Is that true?
That's true.
Look, Daddy, can you get that little grape fade off of there?
No, let's not take any more pieces off of it, okay? Why don't you take it down while it's still together? Mommy's calling you.
How
I
do
love you,
know?
mister. Because she said so in the chat. Love you, dude. Make sure you close the door behind you, okay? What? All right. He is a peach. Have him read Sue's comment. Oh, I missed it. Donald Trump invented rocket ships and named the first one to the moon Little Rocket Man after Marco Rubio. Bro's going to be captain of a U.S. Space Force ship. I mean, who knows if the space thing will come and go, and he'll, it was combines for a while, and maybe eventually it'll be another thing. But if he continues on this current trajectory, then he is absolutely going to command his own space frigate or something like that. Okay, let's finish this video here, and then I will head over to the Kingpill Discord for the voice chat. Come join us, kingpill.com.
Many people will say, that sounds naive. But I think it's the opposite. I think giving up and calling it intelligence is the real stupidity. Optimism is not childish. Optimism is fuel. A country without optimism slowly dies. And America, even after 250 years, still has that fuel. That is unbelievable. But the most unexpected change for me was patriotism. Growing up in Germany, patriotism is not normal. You are taught to be...
America is powered by optimism. Optimism is America's fuel. Not oil. Not oil. We are led by our optimism.
Careful with national pride.
Now, this is interesting because I've said before here on the show that to be a patriot is to be American. Like, patriotism is a uniquely American value. It's distinct from love of country or like being proud of being who you are or whatever. No, patriotism is a very particular thing.
That is unbelievable. But the most unexpected change for me was patriotism. Growing up in Germany, patriotism is not normal. You are taught to be careful with national pride. You are taught to be suspicious of that. Taught that loving your country too openly is dangerous. And that does something to you. It creates...
Gee, I wonder why.
...distance between you and your own home. You can love German food, German cars, German efficiency, and German soccer. But loving Germany itself, that is almost forbidden. Then I came to America.
You cannot love the motherland. Imagine that. Imagine being told that it is wrong for you to love your motherland.
And I saw flags everywhere. At first, I couldn't process it. I thought, wow, Americans really love America. But the longer I lived here, the more I understood the flags here is not just decoration. It's a reminder that this country was built by people who believe freedom was worth the risk. A reminder that a nation needs pride to survive. A reminder that gratitude matters. I still remember my first real 4th of July here. People were wearing red, white and blue, flags everywhere, families were together, fireworks at night. Everyone just openly celebrated their country. And my first German instinct was, is this too much? But then I looked around and thought, no, maybe this is what a healthy country does.
Yes!
It remembers that it is worth celebrating. That hit me, and strangely, America made me proud of Germany again. Because when I saw Americans love their country openly, I started asking myself, why am I not allowed to love mine? Germany has great things, great inventors, great thinkers, great engineering, great culture, and I am German, and I always will be German. But
when America is living up to her own legacy, she is inspiring other people to love their own homeland the way Americans love ours.
America showed me that loving where you come from does not mean you hate anyone else. It means you are grateful. Now my life is both German roots, American dream. That is why I want to fly both flags in front of my house. The German flag and the American flag. And soon my son will be born here, a first generation American, with a German father, and I will teach him to love America. Not in a fake way, in a real way. I want him to understand that this country is not normal. It is not normal to have this much freedom, this much opportunity, this much confidence, this much kindness from strangers, this much belief that tomorrow can be bigger than yesterday. Many people are born into that and never notice it. I had to cross an ocean to see it. And maybe that is why Americans' 250th birthday means so much to me. Because I was not born into this story. I choose it. And yes, America also changed me in funny ways. I now need ice in my water. I love AC. I got your stores where you can buy almost everything. But the biggest change is not the ice, not the AC, not the grocery store. The biggest change is that America made me less afraid of my own life. That is the real story. Germany gave me roots. America gave me wings. Germany taught me structure. America taught me courage. Germany taught me caution. America taught me movement. Germany taught me to think about what people might say. America taught me to think about what I actually want to do. That is what America changed. It made me want more responsibility, more risk, more life. And on July 4th, when Americans celebrate independence, I think about that word differently. Independence is not just a historical event. Independence is a mindset. It is saying, my life is not supposed to be controlled by fear. That is what America gave me. America is not loved because it is perfect. America is loved because it is possible. That is the word. Possible. In America, things still feel possible. You can arrive with an accent. You can start late. You can
Lord Breezy says the German is beginning to believe.
fail. You can change careers. You can build something weird. You can reinvent yourself. You can be nobody and still become somebody. That is why people keep coming. That is why people keep copying America while pretending to hate it. Because deep down, everyone knows this country still represents something powerful. The chance to become something new. That is what happened to me. 2 years ago, I arrived here from Germany. I thought I was just moving to my wife's country. I thought I would learn the culture, adjust to the food, get used to the weather, maybe improve my English. But America did something much bigger. It changed my personality. It made me more open, more hopeful, more ambitious, more grateful, more patriotic, more willing to speak and more willing to fail. And this is why I say, America did not brainwash me. America unbrainwashed me. America gave me back something I did not even know I had lost. The belief that my life still can become bigger. So on America's 250th birthday, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for changing me. Thank you for challenging me. Thank you for welcoming me. Thank you for making me braver. I came here as a German. I'm still German, but I'm not the same man who arrived here 2 years ago. America changed me, and I thank God that it did.
Oh, man. Fucking love my country, man. Lord Breezy says it only took 2 years to transform and abuse German. Living Dead says we're going to clone him 700,000 times and reform libs by putting them in a camp where they have to listen to him face to face talk about how amazing America is. Living Dead said I'm okay with this, Anchor Baby. Yes, yes, you know, every rule has its exception. All right, boys, that is all I have for you tonight. Thank you for tuning in. Go see Young Washington. It is worth it. You will not regret it. And go join the King Pill Discord. Kingpill.com. Give me, I don't know, give me 10 or 15 minutes and I'll be in there for the voice chat. And we'll go deep into the night, I'm sure, as we usually do. Come back on Sunday evening for the Sudawave. It is going to be a banger. I know at least one movie that's going to be in it, and yeah, you want to make it. You want to make an appointment to be there for that. Depending on how late we go tonight, depending on what tomorrow's looking like, there's a possibility I may do a little lab earlier on in the day before the Norway-England game. So stay tuned for that. There's the possibility. But I'm not going to commit to it. We'll see, because depends on how good the conversation is tonight and how late I'm up. Please do share the show with people. Make sure you like the stream, leave a comment, interact with the, give it the algo boost over on YouTube, and leave me a 5-star rating and review if you're listening to this later on as the podcast version of it. Thank you for the gifted sub, Skudovnevsky, Florida girl. Congratulations, you've got the emotes back. And I love you guys. I will see you the next time I'm live. For those of you who are in the Discord, I'll see you there in a few minutes. And for now, I leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough, and I said, let Trumpomania.